Remember the Titans is an American sports drama set in the early 1970s. The film is based on the true story of Herman Boone, an African-American high school football coach who attempts to unite a racially divided football team at T.C. Williams High School. The film beautifully paints the picture of the unity a winning sports organization can create. It highlights the importance of strong and variant leadership styles, along with the significance of a collective effort to creatively solve problems. Start off with, we have the leadership styles of both the coaches, Boone and Yost. Boone's base of power was positional and personal. He gained the position power because he became the head coach, and with that you get certain responsibilities. And personal because he just kind of had that trait about him. He was a very charismatic person. For certain leadership traits, he was also situational, but mainly trait. He just had same thing, kind of the charisma about him, but he also had situational based on the fact of he had different times where he could become a coach, or he could go home and lead in the community, or he could also lead in the high school setting. For the 5M model of leadership, he possessed all five. For the model, he was a model leader. He publicly championed his group goal and the goals of his team. He wanted to basically employ all the kids to really commit to becoming better as a group instead of just the racially divided team that they started off the movie with. He motivated all of his members, committing to the common goal. He wanted them to become an entire football team instead of seeing the color on each member. He just wanted to see the overall group. Managing the group process, he had enough time during the season to monitor, intervene during group performances, during practice, during game time, film sessions, stuff like that. He made a lot of executive decisions, and with those executive decisions, he was listening to a lot of other people, his assistant coaches, other people in the community, and he had to make tough choices based on the fact of what other input he got from other people. He was a strong mentor to all the members of his group. He was able to inspire all of them to come together and not see just color, but also see that really the football and the championship was bigger than just the team. And to go to Yost, his base of power was more positional than anything. He was a really good coach, Hall of Fame coach basically, and then he lost his position of head coach and had to go down to assistant for Boone. And this kind of led to some problems during the beginning part of the movie. He really wanted for task and situational. He had to pick and choose when he was able to lead, because since he's no longer the head coach, he had to really dial down the amount of time that he was able to spend with players and what he could not do. Task motivation, he still wanted to lead and he still wanted to get the job done, win more, make sure the boys are doing what they need to do. For the 5M model, he also had possessed some of them, but not all of them like Boone did. He more just made the other decisions. Being a coach, he still had to make executive choices, listen to other people, get input, and during the end of the movie, he started to understand that it was more, instead of just race and stuff like that, he really had to take input and also shut other people out and make decisions that were better for the group and not just for one part of the community. He managed the group process too. He was able to intervene during practice, get people to work together. But the motivating of the players really came later in the movie, because he had some underlying issues, losing the head coach position to an African American, also having to become an assistant coach instead of being a head coach. Later in the movie, he realized that it was more about the team and the kids learning to work together instead of just what he wanted to do personally.
For Gary and Julius, leadership, trait style, Gary has always been the top dog of the team. He was pretty much grandfathered in as captain. He was a true leader on and off the field. Enjoyed his position as a captain, and you notice that a lot in the beginning of the movie, just based on how vocal he is. And for his power, his positional power, based on he's the captain of the team, and he kind of has an ego to him at the beginning of the movie. And trait style for Julius, from the beginning, he's always possessed leadership qualities, but was overshadowed by Gary. And for Julius, it's more of an issue of he just wants to not be viewed as, like an African American, more of an athlete, and as a good overall person. But at that time, there's a lot of race issues. So for him, it was more of personal power. For situational. As the movie progresses, Gary and Julius develop a brotherly bond beyond friendship, and Gary realizes that Julius is much like him and is okay with him sharing the role and even taking over as the leader. And that happens during the rally parade for when they make it to the state championship game. Gary's driving in his car, they're both pointing at each other like, "You the man, no you the man." Unfortunately, Gary does get into a car accident and Julius does end up taking over his role, and Gary is very welcoming to that and is right by his side for that.
Okay, so with the conflict management, Coach Boone was more of the problem solver, which connects to the collaborating part. He resolved the conflict between the boys as far as putting them together and forcing them to get to know one another and making them room with the opposite race. Coach Yost was more competitive as far as his position. He didn't really want to give up his position to Coach Boone, which made it more difficult because he felt like that Boone would not coach his team like he would. And then Jerry and Julius were compromising because they had to come to a mutual agreement in order for the team to be better off and actually play and win some games. But with the conflict that was between them, they wouldn't be able to do that if they did not come to a common ground on that. Alright, so for group conflict, I feel like the effective conflict was between Gary and Ray because they had a personal relationship, but Gary had to make the decision to cut Ray off of the team because Ray made a decision to throw a play and it affected one of the players. And for the good of the team, Jerry had to make the executive decision and kick him off the team, ultimately ruining their personal relationship that they had. As far as the procedural conflict goes, I think Coach Boone and Coach Yost had the procedural conflict because of the methods that they had to use in order to make the team win and in order to do their job as the coach and win the games together. And then the substantive conflict would be the team itself because of the issues that they had amongst themselves as far as racially and coming together to play a game. It was more harder for them to come together because they had outside sources influencing their decisions racially and inside of their head, making them not want to play as part of the team. But ultimately they came together with the help of one of the players who called a meeting, and they decided that they would all have to get along in order to win and become the champions that they wanted to be.
Okay, so there are 3 decision-making methods: voting, consensus seeking, and authority rule. However, in the movie Remember the Titans, voting was not displayed, but there are several occasions where authority rule and consensus seeking are displayed by Coach Boone and Coach Yost. For authority rule, Coach Boone made sure the team and his fellow assistant coaches knew from the beginning that he was in charge. Boone uses both power and authority to get his way. For example, on the first day of meeting the players, he stated, "This is not a democracy, it's a dictatorship. I am the law." And he basically instills fear into the players, demanding respect. Coach Yost uses authority rule by making it known that Coach Boone was not the only one that was capable of making decisions for the team. For example, when Coach Boone was being too hard on Petey, who was one of the players, Coach Yost pulled Petey aside and told him not to worry about what Coach Boone said and for him to play on defense for the time being. Although he undermined Coach Boone's authority, he showed that he too had a voice. And I believe Coach Boone was more effective with this method because although he was hard on the players, he immediately demanded respect from both the players and his fellow assistant coaches, which he got. And that is a good way of showing good leadership, which he did. With consensus seeking, Coach Boone used it when informing the boys that if they do not come together, they too will be destroyed by what's happening around them. For example, from the movie, Coach Boone takes the boys to the field where the Battle of Gettysburg took place and stated, "If we don't come together right now on this hollow ground, we too will be destroyed just like they were." And this gave the boys a new perspective on life and motivated them to come together. And Coach Yost used consensus seeking when reminding the Titans what kind of team they are and to make sure they make everyone else remember who they are as well. And he uses this method more towards the end of the movie where they were doing poorly in a game, and he pulled the boys aside and told them, you make sure they remember forever the night they played the Titans. And this really motivated the players to play well, and they ended up winning that game. And I believe Coach Boone was more successful with this method because after his speech was the turning point in the movie where the boys actually came together and started working together as a team. And from the beginning, Boone's intentions were to break down the team and rebuild them so they can put their differences aside and come together as a team, play as a team, and win as a team, and he was successful with that.
Racism really affected the Titans' ability to work through issues. There was an early divide between the players because the black and whites did not want to play with each other and would have preferred to stay separate. Integration was something that was forced upon them. This affected the team's on-field unity because everyone was playing for themselves and not the team. White players were not supporting the black players on the field and vice versa. As time went on, more guys became open to integrating, playing for one another, and getting along, but others did not. This led to Ray, a white player, intentionally missing a block at the line of scrimmage, which led to the starting quarterback, Jerry Harris, better known as Rev, to break his wrist. Another problem-solving conflict was the politics. At one point during the film, Coach Yost was approached by men who could potentially induct him into the Virginia High School Hall of Fame and asked him to work with the Revs and themselves to throw the next game. Yost wasn't thinking clearly and kept quiet for most of the game as the Titans struggled. Torn between what he wanted and what he knew was best, about halfway through the game, Yost decided not selling out was more important than getting inducted into the Hall of Fame. Yost's selfish greed nearly cost Coach Boone his job and the Titans their undefeated season. Also, Coach Boone was put in a difficult position shortly after he took the head coaching job at T.C. Williams High School. It was brought to his attention before the season had even started that if he loses a single game, he will lose his job. This made Boone even more motivated to win, but may have clouded his judgment when it came to making important decisions. It also resulted in having less compassion for struggling players because all he had time to think about was winning games and protecting his job. Finally, the power struggle between the two coaches interfered with the Titans' ability to effectively solve problems. Coach Yost and Coach Boone each wanted to make all the decisions on the issues that were under their jurisdiction. The rift in Coach Yost and Coach Boone's relationship started when Coach Boone, who is an African American, was given Coach Yost's head coaching job. The decision was spontaneous and caught both coaches off guard. Boone thought he was brought in to work under Yost, not take his job. Yost was much more experienced and was one successful season away from being inducted into the Virginia High School Hall of Fame. After Yost nearly walked away to take a head coaching job at another school, Boone asked Yost to remain on staff as the defensive coordinator. Problem solving within a group requires participation from all active members. Coach Boone and Yost had little interest in working with each other for the majority of the film when it came to in-game problem solving. They would say, you just worry about your offense or you just worry about your defense. If the two of them would have put their heads together, they could have come up with better and more creative solutions to solve their problems. This is proven during the state championship when Yost and Boone had time to call one more play. All season, Boone had refused to call any of Yost's trick plays. However, Boone took a chance and ran one after Yost suggested it. The result of running the play was a winning touchdown. To wrap things up, Remember the Titans is an inspiring film on the power sports have to create cohesion within a conflicted group. The film is filled with examples of different but effective leadership styles and features the importance of using different methods to creatively solve problems based on the given scenario.